It should be in,
Town council. Town council.
yes. Presentations. So that,
Okay, I haven't looked through the presentation. There were a couple of items that we wanted to specifically discuss tonight. Are they in your
that
presentation?
should be covered.
Okay, very good. Scott, I'm gonna turn it over to you, okay?
All right. Thank y'all for being patient with me. Sorry, it took me a minute to get everything printed out.
Well, you just got out of the meeting a minute ago.
That's right. So, you know, we kind of put this in, Katie put this, presentation together, just as a brief overview of what we've gone through, what we've talked about, potentially changes to be made and stuff we want to talk about. So next,
We're gonna do.
there we go. So some of the expenditure considerations, and I think we went through some of these in your original presentation, Katie, but you know, as we're developing the budget this year, some of the events that we had that have really affected us was number one, inflation. Hurricane Helene and the whole water notice, that was pretty significant impact to us. We've got FEMA reimbursement pending for about $164,000 there. Don't think we'll get all of it back, but you know, hopefully we will get some, but that'll be down the road. But that was a direct impact. And then the ice storm in February, that was about another $550,000 roughly of an unplanned expenditure. So based on that, that impacted our fund balances and our carryovers. So going forward, developing this year's budget, obviously we had inflation again to deal with, anticipation of the effects of tariffs, supply chain, planning for pandemics, that type of things. Looking at the long-term capital expenditures, these are some of the big ticket items that my understanding is were council's priorities in the previous years. So the Huckleberry Park and Aquatics Parking, right now, we've got a rough estimate of about $8 million for a full build out. We talked in our last work session about removing the $950,000 we had allocated for design. We'll talk about that later, about where we want that to go. You know, again, long-term capital, just kind of a budget number, not anything that's in this right now, but anticipating $10 million for an emergency services building. Still need to determine the site, the scope, and the need for that. That number may fluctuate depending on what we want. I think we can talk a little bit more about that later. And then the public works complex is another big ticket item that we're going to have to plan for in the coming years. We're estimating that right around $2 million and what's in the purchase property. Just a quick recap of kind of Katie's previous presentation. Our meals tax continues to trend upward. Sales tax, we use a Montgomery County's estimate to try to stay consistent with what our projections are there. Lodging tax, we're seeing a slight upward trend on that. So we're kind of holding our projections flat for that for the next fiscal year. No proposed increase on personal property and real estate taxes. We are proposing a $1 increase in our water fee per 1,000 gallons. That'll generate roughly an estimated $500,000 that we would anticipate going into our water and wastewater capital reserve for future projects. And then there's no proposed increase on sewer, garbage, or stormwater utilities. I won't read these numbers. These are just general fund balances for revenue and appropriations. Anticipated for this year, you should have most of that information in this budget packets. Just some revenue considerations if you're looking for additional revenue. You know, a 1 cent increase on real estate tax would generate about $300,000. 1 cent on meals taxes, about 1.3 million, lodging, 200,000 roughly, and cigarette tax, 190,000. Again, you've got these in front of you. This is just some rough numbers. If you're looking for other revenue sources, these are some things that could be done. We haven't proposed any of that in this current budget, but again, it's council's prerogative what we'd like to do. So
What is the cigarette tax right now? Do you know?
what's
The rate.
right now, right?
I was thinking it was somewhere like, the figure 40 cents a pack sticks in my mind, but I'm not,
Yeah,
40 to 50 cents a pack. Is that close?
Sorry, I'm not out into that tax that much.
Okay.
I'll look it up and let you know.
all right, so moving on to some of the items that council wanted to discuss. First one being the water rates from the enterprise fund. So the wholesale rates for our water have gone up roughly 4.5% this year, which is a 19-cent increase. Next year, we anticipate another 4.5%, which is another 20-cent increase. And we anticipate future increases are anticipated. So that was part of the reasoning behind the dollar increase in town water fees, is so we don't have to come back every single year and do it. Hit it one time, spend some time to build up some reserve for future projects. We've also got increased expenditures tied to maintenance costs, tied to inflation for materials. We've got our aging infrastructure that's happening. We're currently doing our water listing and leak detection projects. And we'll have an increased need in the future for capital projects to address those findings. So I know that our enterprise fund reserve is starting to whittle down because of all the projects that we're trying to finish. So it would be an opportunity to try to build some of that up. And then ongoing maintenance and maintenance replacement of this water.
One of the things, and I'm not sure how many of you were even on council during that time, but, you know, early on, when I first came on council, we were subsidizing the water rates by almost $1 million a year. We were losing money left and right on the water rates. We just couldn't keep up. So, you know, we've got that stabilized now, but it was a big drain on, you won't want to say reserve, but a big drain on the budget every year when we were going $1 million, sometimes $1.2 million, because of the shortfall in what we were getting and, you know, the costs involved in it and those type of things. So this is, over the last several years, it's been a gradual increase to get us back to, if not a break even, but at least building some reserves. And I think we see with the reserve balances we have across the board, we've got some good funding, but we could always use some more.
So since we're talking water, Kim asked a question in her thing about, can we charge the county $1 without charging the town, Kim?
Yes,
And I think we've done that before.
yeah.
I know we've done
The
it.
question was if we choose to charge the county, do we have to charge the town?
Yeah, and I think Randy, told me before he left that he's got a draft of your questions and he should have them out finished tomorrow. So he may email those 8 or 10 questions to you this afternoon. But I think, you know, they're a county, they're a water buying customer. They don't pay taxes, they don't pay upkeep on anything. So if we wanted to charge them $3 more a gallon, we theoretically could, but that's a little gouging.
We did it. The last
Big
year you were on
increase.
water and waste, we raised theirs and didn't raise ours, remember?
Yeah.
So
We could do that again. I just don't feel like we need to do another increase within the last 10 years. We have over double our water increases for the town citizens. And you know, we keep saying that we're not going to raise their taxes, but we are actually doing that. We're increasing their bills now for everybody by doing this.
That is not a tax.
I am
It-
saying
it-
is an
it is not
increase,
that.
and is an increase and someone is they have to pay for this every month. I will have to pay out of my family's bills.
But it's not considered a tax. It's-
Well, to
it's-
me,
it's
it's
a
another
cost to
bill,
our
it's
business.
another cost,
Okay.
so. what I was saying was that we keep increasing this water and, everything else, and the meal tax is already really high. 12.8, I know that includes the state, but that's still really high.
So in the next 2 years, the town's gonna end up paying 40 cents a gallon, 40 cents per 1,000 gallon.
Which is only 19 cents. We went from every time, they increased it by 19 cents, and we increased it to the citizens by $1. And this has always, even in the last times where the increases were by cents, we keep increasing it. Every time we get an increase from them, we pass that multiplied by so much more to the citizens. That's a big,
So that was the goal of the dollar increase this year, because we anticipate wholesale rates increasing over the next couple of years, is to try to knock it out one time, build up some reserve and not pass any additional. So next couple.
but it's always by pennies. If you look at the amounts that Randy sent me the other day, we went from, what was it, $6 for 1,000 gallons to within 10 years. What is it now? Like $11 or $10 for 1,000 gallons?
Are you talking about what we pay
Yeah,
as a citizen or to the water?
no, as a citizen in town,
As a citizen for water per 1,000 gallons is $7 was in 1819. And the proposed would go to $11.
so, yeah.
That's for the first 1,000 gallons, so that would be the minimum.
Yes, it's still, a $4 increase in the amount of how many years?
7, 8, because we.
Well, in the last 10 years, what was the increase? Because I got the numbers from 2016, it used to be $7 to now
It's 9 years, it's gone up.
$14.42.
Hmm.
Yeah. No, it's not that high. How did we get that? Is that the numbers we got from Randy?
So the bottom line
So
is,
is it 14.42 now?
no,
Or
Is
that's
that
what,
the county rate? Oh, wait, Randy sent you guys the PSA rates, I think. Is that the PSA rates you got?
I don't know.
water rates.
It just says water rate
He sent
for
us a
2015-16 through 24-25.
I think I saw that. I think that
Yeah.
was where you requested what the PSA's rates were. That might be that spreadsheet.
Yeah, so
But it still was $7 now, we're at 11. It will go to 11.
and that's over 9
That's-
years, almost 10 years. You quoted 2016, so that's basically 10, that's over 10 years, so it's gone up about
Oh, no.
50 cents less than 50 cents a year.
Understand this thing.
Oh, so what happened, maybe, because of reason better, is we used to charge 0 to 4,000 gallons and we billed every 2 months. And then we switched to the 1,000 gallons every month. And so they adjusted the rate down from set to $7, to the $7. So really, to compare apples to apples, you would need to start, I think, in 18, where it's per 1,000 gallons, $7, and then comparing apples to apples would be this year, the proposed.
But in 2012, it was 440, right?
Those-
Oh, 2012, 440, I think that is, yeah.
And then 2013
But-
was 460, 2014 was 490, 550, 2015, that was from Randy. 2016 was 590, in 2017, 614, in 2018, $7.
Yeah.
So we used to go up 10 cents, 20 cents, and now we are going $1 every time.
But it was every year.
So in 2012, it was $4.40. And a little bit over 10 years, we're at, $11 now.
yeah, so you're definitely getting a bigger cut by doing it all now, because they're gonna be stuck with that rate for those next years, where if you're giving it a little bit each year.
And that's, that's
Yeah,
fine.
no.
The ballot, the budget can handle whatever you guys
Yeah,
decide.
I
to
just
do.
want everybody to
Yeah,
understand
just-
that's really what's
And
happening.
that extra money would be diverted to our enterprise reserve fund so we can fund some of these other.
I would
Projects.
lean toward going with $1 now if we take a couple of years off to just be able to build us some reserve.
We have been increasing this water. The point is, we're going from $4.40 for a family that there's 2 people in your family, I assume. There's over 6 people in my family. I mean, that's a big bill. Our bill is over $200 a month right now. That's not with the increases that you have right now. So, I mean, that's for a family of 6. Everybody in Christiansburg doesn't make a lot of money too. I mean, there is not that many people that make that much money too, to be able to cover these bills.
So Kim, is your proposal 0 or a smaller cut?
My thing would be,
I was asking Kim.
Well, I'm not finished sounding it out yet. But yeah, I would be open more to a smaller cut. I mean, grabbing it all at one time and then carrying it through every year
Sure.
is not doing the citizens a favor. It is doing the reserve a favor. But, you know, I talked to Randy about this before the first budget meeting, and Randy told me we didn't have to go up on the water this year.
Right.
That we had a good sound budget and we were in good financial shape.
and he said that to me the other day.
And considering those things, you know, I understand that we need to have money in reserves. But I think there's other spending that could and should be cut instead of raising people's water in these economic conditions that people are facing. People are having a struggle. Not everybody in this room per se, not myself, but I'm totally aware of what's happening to individuals who are slipping between the cracks. And every time we make a raise, we affect those people.
Okay. All right.
So did you just talk yourself back down to 0? I'm just trying to.
I said, I'm not, I should sounded it all out yet. I want to
All right.
hear from the rest of the room, so.
Makes sense.
All right, Scott, let's go ahead.
All right, so move on to the next one. So the fire and EMS discussion. So right now, we had the mayor sent a letter to Montgomery County trying to schedule a meeting with the board of supervisors. You know, we referenced in that letter an extended fire and EMS service area, which essentially town citizens are supplementing outside of town limits. We discussed increasing the fire department contribution, which they're currently giving us about 155 to roughly 394,000. We asked for an EMS contribution increase of 150 to about 500,000 roughly. Thing to note is Montgomery County's already approved their budget, so we take a budget amendment on their part if they were to give us any additional money. There is an RFP getting ready to hit the streets by Montgomery County. Sometime, I think in the next 30 days is when that's gonna go out, and it's gonna focus on, from a countywide perspective, it's gonna focus on, equipment, facilities, staffing, and then the 2 towns specifically asked for it to address the financials. So, you know, given that, you know, I know we had talked about in the last work session, taking the money that we had from a capital project, the Huckleberry, and potentially funding fire and EMS positions. But wonder just what is council's thoughts on waiting until we get that study done, getting some hard data, seeing what the actual need is before committing to adding those additional positions?
Yes, please. So, one of my biggest thing is the $950,000 should definitely go back into our reserves. That would be for me, just so we know what to expect with these tariffs and everything else that's going on. I am very grateful to whoever did this presentation to really, and I'm sure Katie, you guys had something to do with that. And considering the fact that there's a lot going on right now in the country. I mean, these tariffs are gonna kill a lot of small businesses. And I mean, I'm a small business owner too, and this is gonna hit home. I mean, this is already hitting home. And so these tariffs may close a lot of shops, may close a lot of restaurants. We don't know what that's gonna look like. And even for building, I mean, for buildings, a lot of the builders, we went to a building conference the other day, and they're really talking about we're canceling any construction project projects. They're not doing anything construction wise because the heat pumps just went through a big change in there's like, the chemical and the stuff that is used to make the air conditioners is going up, everything's going up. And so now the cheapest you're gonna get a heat pump is gonna be $16,000, $8,000 and up. The increase in, for the house building and everything. So I'm really, really happy about that. The other thing is about the EMS, from the beginning, I said, just like he was talking about, we should really, really look into what's the county gonna do in that study. And I said it from the beginning, we should wait for the study to happen. And obviously, in the meantime, keep asking the county and pressuring them to give us some money, because the reality is, even Blacksburg, do you know Blacksburg is stopped paying for SROs now? And so the county is gonna be paying for the SROs.
School resource officers.
Yeah.
And so, and now they're saying, well, maybe Christiansburg will do the same, and we have been about to do the same, and guess who is gonna fund them? The county is gonna fund them now.
That's not completely accurate. We were in the meeting last week and the county is willing to talk to Blacksburg over it.
But I talked.
There was a discussion while the county manager, Blacksburg city manager, the board of supervisors, we were all in that.
And the school board.
And the school board brought up, and the school board said they were gonna ask Blacksburg to fund, and Blacksburg city manager said we're asking the sheriff's office to fund it because they did it for Christiansburg. And the county said, it's something we're all gonna have to discuss and figure out who's gonna pay for the elementary school SROs for Blacksburg. So it was a massive discussion that went back and forth, but there was no one that said that there's any
Was
money.
that before the train
I was at
station,
the meeting.
thing down there?
Yeah. I mean,
What day?
before that.
Was it before the train station?
Yeah, that was on Wednesday morning.
Before?
Yeah.
Okay, so from some of the council members and everything that were there, it doesn't sound like they are gonna be funding this in Blacksburg.
Yeah, I mean, same thing we did. They're taking the same stand we did and tell the county to
So it's
do it, but it's
interesting
not
to see what they're gonna be doing, because, I mean,
and they took the same stand, so back to this instead of Blacksburg's SROs. When Tanya and I met yesterday for fire and EMS committee meeting, we stand firm that we think we need these positions. However, we agree to wait for the study to come out so that we figure out that the county said at that meeting that when they did an assessment on what it would cost 4 or 5 years ago for the county to staff all of fire and EMS, it would require them to raise the tax back then 19 cents per $100.
who said that?
The county did to fund completely. And so they're gonna have this study done, and at the end of and it's due in November, December timeframe.
Mm.
Then they'll come back and let us know what they think.
So in the
Sure.
meantime, that letter was sent out from you, Mr. Barber, right?
That's correct.
Was there a reply to that letter?
There was the indication that they would be glad to meet with us. And we've given them several dates and have not gotten any response from them. And I will be very honest with you, in past dealings with them, their budget's set. They're not gonna do anything now until this new study comes in.
Well, two different ones said that when we asked them for this, they said, we'll do a study and then we'll actually sit down with you when the study's done. And they're gonna sit down with both Blacksburg and Christiansburg and say, here's what the study says. Let's come to a mutual agreement on what everybody's gonna do.
And that study should get input from
Right.
all of us.
Yeah.
So we should have a role in.
So,
Yeah, I think I think that sounds like a clear direction.
Right. We just.
And I was at that meeting as well, and they seem very amenable to that kind
It's
of
a lot
plan.
easier to argue your point when you've got the data to back it up.
so one of my biggest concerns is, Mr. Hanks has been asking for fire EMS people for over 10 years. Not getting much of, not many people to replace the ones that he has had as far as paid positions instead of just volunteers. I still feel that our budget can still push for 2 additional fire EMS people. And that's just me, because here is my biggest concern. Within the last 10 years, yes, he has made it. And they have made it a really wonderful job for our community. Our community keeps growing. And as far as like me going to their like Christmas events and stuff, I see these people. They are just like you and I, but they are working not just for whatever they are doing and taking time away from their families. They're also not doing this during their normal dates, but they're retired people. A lot of them seem like they have been retired for a while, but my biggest concern is we're pushing them to the limit. And that's what I'm seeing. Maybe it's not true, but I see these people that were, volunteer for so many hundreds of hours, and they're not getting no money. They're not getting no pay. And how are we gonna be replacing these people in the future? I feel like, it should be for us to take care of at least 2 positions this year for the fire emergency services. Because I just think that is a real need. Instead of paving, parking lots or doing other things or putting money for public works. We have a public works facility that may not be in the great location, but we have a public works facility. We had a fire, we need really good trained firemen that can go out there. And please don't take it as a bad thing. But I think that, we're pushing them to the limit, And I don't want that. I don't want them to feel like we are taking advantage of them, because I feel like we are.
See the recommendation that Randy sent to us about moving the funds where it's at. I think we should leave it where it's at right now anyway. I mean, I said that in our last meeting, not putting fire and rescue down by any means, but I think Randy made several good points that we move up funds now versus the long term.
If we spend it now, we've inherited it where it's gonna
Yeah,
be
so I think we should leave it where it's
much
at.
more money over the spread. And then we have to pull some of it back reserve, and you don't get as much bang for a buck, so it's sitting there. And it can sit in a reserve account, whether it be EMS building fund, whether it's aquatic center parking lot, it can sit in any fund it wants. And we can move it at any time we want from one to another.
So here is another thing, how I look at it. I always think about the necessities before the wants. And please don't take this in our wrong way, because I do feel like, maybe miles may be important for the town, but, we open up a position for a business manager person in the town. We're still paying for tourism. And I don't see much going with that, but the whole thing is that we're putting those before we actually hire EMS people. How does that actually make us look like? I know that it makes us look like we want tourism and everything to grow, but we are investing in tourism. We built a park that is absolutely amazing. We have over 10 parks in the town of Christiansburg. We have an aquatic center. We have so many facilities that are amazing in the town, and we obviously invest a lot of money in the town. But at the same time, I do feel like these positions are needed.
Well, I think that the reason we're not, and we have not seen the bang for the buck out of tourism, because we went almost a year without a director, and then we went almost another year with a director, which was the same as going without a director. So there's not been a lot of marketing efforts into tourism at this point, but we're, I think I'm very optimistic. They are advertising for a director of tourism now, and I have seen, I've had several people tell me that they have applied, or this one's applied, and it's a very, very exciting group that has put that application. That's not up to this council to hire them. It'll be up to the tourism board, but I think the last time they advertised, it just wasn't anybody out there. And I don't know whether it was coming out of pandemic. I don't know what it was, but there was nobody out there. And it was kind of an appeasement. Well, let's get this person in here and see what he can do. Well, I think we found out pretty quick.
I just feel like the town has been, we are the a growing community, but we're not that large. We are under 25,000 people in the town and I know we want to grow, but we pay a lot of money to other things that make us be, out there. We pay for the Chamber of Commerce, we pay for things to be part of the business organization thing in Roanoke. We do events, we do all these things that we invest a lot of amount of money. And it just feels like, are we just paying just to give candy out instead of just actually giving some of the services that are really needed? If we had a fire today, I know they will take care of it, no problem, but will they be able to take care of it with the people in a year or two? Without having those 2 years in, the tourism money is being, like you're saying, nothing has been really done this last year, but where's the money going? Can we just, you guys know my instance on that. We should have gotten out of that, use that money for other things, but that's a lot of money. It's over $1 million in the tourism. And I know that that's with the county and everything else, but we pay a lot of money for this.
And you mentioned something, and I will disagree with you wholeheartedly on, is that, the business management position, is it needed? Well, what else do we do as a town to support our businesses? When we offer someone that can sit down with them and work on problems with them, help them get started in a business and hopefully maintain the business. That's one of the problems we see. A business comes in, it lasts a couple of years and they shut down because they didn't have the
But
guidance.
we are paying the county for that too. The county has a position that does that too. And we're part of the county as well. As a matter of fact, if you want to start a business, you can actually just contact them directly. Or you
Them
can call.
being the county?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, but still,
You
We
can
have
contact
businesses that are
the small
established.
business or,
we
yeah.
have businesses that are established within our town. We have several. I'm thinking they're probably, if you really count it down, probably well over 2,000, maybe 3,000 businesses. Now, they don't all have flashing signs out front of them, but there are a lot of businesses that we have on our books. So I feel that we owe it to these citizens that have chosen the town to do business in. And plus the fact that when they do business in our town, they're gonna have to follow our guidelines and our ordinances. So, what's been, I'm sorry, Ms. Hicks, am I boring you?
No, I was just mentioning to her so she can tell you about something that I thought was interesting.
Okay, so anyway, I was not at all for this position when it first opened. However, I do see a benefit. I see an even bigger benefit out of the current position holder than I did out of the other. So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox.
We did we put like a 90-day clause in there to get out if we weren't seeing any beef? Like if we weren't seeing what we were expecting. Tim, do you remember that? Seems like you.
Is tourism or, yeah,
Yeah, the
We have to
previous
give them the-
contract was not good for the town, obviously.
according to the contract, we have to give them 12 months notice to get out, which we did.
What happened to Bertie?
We can always be funded, so it's appropriating funds. Is where our out is, and we just don't appropriate the funds. And so it's a contract that says that we're supposed to do X, but we as a council, if we decide not to appropriate the funds, then they just don't get paid. And that was the out. There's a clause in the last couple pages that says that.
It said that before. Basically. Nothing changed really. Just another year.
So we are working on the budget right now. So we were not to appropriate those funds for that.
We're talking about fire and EMS and whether or not we're gonna fund it, actually, is what we were talking about. So I think we go back to moving from this slide and then
Well, we're actually talking about the budget completely. So this, what I'm trying to do is trying to find money to pay this emergency service people that will take care of our community in the next year and the years to come that need training too, because I know I'm sure that that takes some time to get them from the position of starting out a job. It's not gonna be I don't see that it may be really easy to find a fire unless he had a lot of experience before for them to be trained and everything on what we need them to do. So no, the question is relevant to me.
So we have $950,000 sitting in the budget now. We have money we can, if you think we need to hire 2 people, we have money that's sitting there,
Yeah.
that's unassigned.
I'm actually
We have $1
for,
billion.
Well, I think that there's been some goals and some standards set between the two departments to, as far as revenue recovery and some things like that. So, in the past, we've been able to fund a good portion of our EMS people with the, insurance, the soft billing money that we're getting out of. So, and that's part of the incentive that's passed on to, you need to,
so
we need to work on, because I think our figures are down.
Yeah, but-
We need to work on getting everything we can out of fire and EMS. But
So-
to us, that comes back to the town. And if they each increased, and it's easier said than done, if they each increased their revenue by $100,000, that would pay for closely for 2 EMS and 2 fire. So it's out of a, incentive to increase your revenue.
So, Tim, you were talking about the money in the budget. It can actually go back and be allocated into our reserves. But the emergency service building to me, or the public works complex, will become second for me. Because it is especially the $10 million for the building. Because if the county is gonna pay for a new building, if the study comes back, that's why I don't wanna have this in the budget right now.
Well, it's not in.
Those numbers aren't in the budget. These are just for your mind.
Down the road.
Long-range planning. These are expenditures that may come down the
Later on.
road, but it's based on.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Public Works building is, when we bought that land, it's projected 2 or 3 years out at least, at least. So we're not spending any money on parking lots or anything else. We haven't budgeted, but we're not doing
We've got some minimal expenditures to do some landscape planning around the perimeter, but that's all we've got for the public works
it.
complex.
We don't have a plan for it yet.
That money, those numbers there, the 8 million, 10 million, 3 million, they're just saying, those are considerations.
How much does it cost for, how much is will the payment be for 2 fire EMS? Do you expect what, 200,000 for both with training?
With engines, it's gonna be about $80,000 per firefighter.
So yeah, $160,000, 2 people. And
Plus add another, cost-wise, add another 30%, because when you add operational costs, you have to add to the operational reserve. So add another 30% of that to be allocated to the reserve.
so you're looking around under 200,000. And you still get 2 positions filled in now when he has been asking for them for a long time. I think the necessity for us is to pay those and wait for the study to see what the county is gonna help us with, and hopefully they'll build the building and do everything else they need to do. But I think right now, those fire department positions are needed. Not that I'm calling, but I just really feel that instead of even doing increases and whatever, a lot of companies are telling their workers right now, you should be grateful you have a job. That was the answer for a lot of businesses. And I don't want to say that but there are people in here that we make a lot more money than the normal citizens.
So you were talking 400 grand to the fire and to the rescue.
I was just gonna start with fire EMS because it seems like the rescue squad
Which
has
is
the fire department.
fire, that's 2, that's 160.
Yeah,
EMS,
they can wait because from my understanding, they only have 2 volunteers there? Wasn't-
EMS,
Yeah,
just 2 volunteers left.
yeah, 2 volunteers left. But I do see the biggest need in the fire department, and I mean, you can answer that.
I mean, we, you know, the increased revenue recovery from the EMS side, we need more people to do it because we need to cover more calls.
Mhm.
If we don't have the people to cover the calls, then we're not going to increase revenue recovery. Well, if we can't answer the call, we're not going to get paid for the call.
How many calls do they have to make to overcome the $208,000 cost?
I'd have to figure that out. I couldn't tell you that right on. I mean, it depends on the type of call. Our revenue recovery is tiered. Yeah, it's tiered based upon the type of call. If it's a BLS call, it's a different rate. If it's a ALS call, which is an advanced life support call, which requires cardiac, drug intervention, stuff like that, that's based at another tier.
And that's part of what we've asked for in the study.
Correct.
Is for them to give us that breakout so that we know what those numbers really are. And so that's part of what we anticipate finding in that
So-
study is those numbers that you're asking.
Let me ask you another question then. How much of a hardship are you gonna be in if you have to wait until November, December before a study comes in?
No worse than we are right now. You know, we're maintaining right now, that doesn't, you know, account for what could be the increase in call. You know, we turned over 5 calls, one day over the weekend, we had to turn over fire calls or 5 EMS calls because we were booked out. We had 2 units on,
Yeah,
2 units were out on calls. We started having calls back to back.
yeah.
Same on the fire department today. We had 3 calls back to back in 15 minutes.
I really wish we had those numbers. It would make it a lot easier.
Yeah, we can try to put together something for you on that. It's, we can give you a ballpark, but you know, you just don't know depending on the day. But you know, like yesterday, we didn't run a call at all on the fire department. We run 6 today. We run 3 back to back within 15 minutes. So, you know, when I've only got 2 paid positions in the station and a couple of volunteers in the station, and we have 3 calls back to back, we can't cover 3 calls back to back. Does that happen every day? No, it does not. Some days we only have 1 or 2 calls each day, but there are occasions, you know, when we back up. Same as EMS, we've had as many as 5 calls back to back with EMS.
It sounds like the study is gonna be,
The study is going to give us all the information we need to make a logical decision about what we're asking for, and we'll have the data behind it to be able to justify what we're asking for. And personally, you know, I think personally, I would rather hold off, get the data in here. The data is going to show us everything we need. And that way it's quantifiable. We can justify what we're asking for. Now, right now, we're sort of estimating and our best guess of what it's going to take. But once we have that data, we can quantify what we ask for.
I love that answer and thank you for being willing to wait.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, I think everybody in the room wants to make sure you have what you need,
Right.
but we also have to keep an eye to the budget. So I appreciate.
Yeah, and I think, I think the study is going to show everything. It's going to open a lot of eyes to not just to Christiansburg, but to the whole county. And I think once they do that study, then we'll have better information. We'll have numbers to go by.
And-
And I think especially the financial.
Will give us more and we can use
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, by charter, we only have to provide to the citizens in the town limits of Christiansburg fire and EMS services. Not so we're not gonna do that, but, I mean, if push comes to shove and they're not gonna give us any money, then we have to really make stronger decisions on what we're gonna do. And I know that it's a revenue stream, all that kind of stuff, but it's,
That factors in a whole different.
oh, I know it does, but at this point, that's.
I think the study will show us everything we need to know. It will show the county everything they need to know for their future growth also, because there's going to be areas in the county that need services. And all our insurance, homeowners insurance, response times in areas. So it's going to show that. And I think if we wait and get this study in the seat, we can to be able to take those numbers and say, hey, you're based upon these numbers in your study, this is what we should be getting. And I think that would be, I think that's the fairest way to do it all the way around, because at the end of the day, doesn't matter if it's a Christiansburg truck, an Ellison truck, a Rhino truck, or a long shop truck, or a Blacksburg truck coming to take care of you if you're in trouble. And if your house is on fire, they don't care where it comes from. They
And
want-
I have lived through a house fire almost every day. So.
And I think, I think the ultimate goal here is we want all the citizens of not only the two towns, but Montgomery County to be protected the best they can be protected. And I think the county's willing to discuss that. I think we need to wait on state.
Can I ask you something? I know Showalter have brought this up in the past. As far as the fire department, trying to recover any money from like events and stuff. Are you doing that right now?
Right now, but it does not equate to what we do for EMS services.
But we did start, this year, I think you started that program.
We started it this year. The companies that we talked to, that we did the RFPs from, projected what they thought we might could get. We're not even gonna come close to that. I mean, there's calls that we can't collect anything on. There's calls that only what the homeowner's insurance has got for the fire rating in, which is mostly $600 per call. Doesn't matter if you bill out 5,000 or 6,000, you're only going to get what the insurance company pays, because that's what council voted. We voted on compassionate billing to take only what the insurance company pays. So if we got $6,000 worth of charges out here, and the insurance company going to pay 600, then we're 5,400 in the hole from that call, if you look at it as a call per basis. But we are doing some recovery. We are collecting a little bit of money. But it's not going to be what we were told we would collect. And it's paperwork intensive. All I's have got to be dotted correctly. The T's have got to be crossed correctly. Takes an enormous amount of time to QA reports. My volunteer guys we've had to train them on how to write the reports and what verbiage to use in the reports to get it paid. And it's paperwork intensive. And I've got two people that are in charge of that. One's my deputy fire marshal, one's our admin person. And they spend hours every day QAing reports just so we can submit them for payment.
Thank you.
I hope that you realize that I want to make sure you guys have what you need as far as this
Absolutely.
goes. And so,
Absolutely.
I appreciate your answer, and I feel a lot better knowing, obviously I always sleep a lot better because I know you guys will take care of us.
Right.
But I do see a future need in the fire department. And so I just want to make sure that you have what you need from us and.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Next slide, please.
Just a question about loans for capital projects. So the current debt service is actually on the next slide, and I'll go to that in a minute. Wastewater treatment plant enterprise fund. I want to talk about the New River Valley Passenger Rail Station Authority, which includes about $7,000 for a NEPA study, which is essentially Christiansburg's share of the overall. That's going to be paid out of the current fiscal year, so that's not a budget consideration for the they're expecting architectural and engineering report with cost estimates for the station in late 2025. There's been a $2 million grant allocated towards the station rehabilitation. And then the other passenger rail station authority members contribute as part of a participation agreement. And I mentioned Christiansburg is about 19.7% of the overall cost of that in there.
So, okay, the way it breaks out, Christiansburg, Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, and Montgomery County putting out 19.7% each. Because the feeling is that's where the majority of the ridership will come from those zip codes. And the rest of them, the rest of it is based out size $7,000 to as low as $305 for Giles County or something. So, but it is spread out evenly, and this is so that it's not, we're not taking the lion's share of it. We're splitting it.
And then the other large capital project is the NRV Emergency Communications Regional Authority. Right now, they're looking at about a $3.4 million loan, estimated at 4.4% for software and tower work. That software cost is split between the four members, and tower work is based on locations. You know, we're not paying for a tower that only Blacksburg and the county are on. It's only for towers that we're gonna be a part of. There's about 1.3 million due on July 1st of 26 for radios, and radios are charged directly to each member. So the next slide is kind of the overall breakdown, so you can see what the current debt service is.
Very good. Move on.
One of the items that was brought up was COLA and merit increases. Right now, we've got a proposed COLA in the budget at 2.5% for fiscal year 25-26. It's an overall cost to the town of about $328,000. There's a proposed merit allocation of 2%. Consumer price index or increase, should say index, not increase, but should say that for Southern Urban for 23-24 was about 3%. I want to say that it's around 2.5 the last couple of years. I have to go back and look and see what the actual numbers are. Reasons for including that in there is, you know, the town must remain competitive with our surrounding localities and private industry for more retained employees. The town of Blacksburg is proposing exactly what we are proposing. Montgomery County has got a 3% COLA, and the Commonwealth of Virginia, as part of their biannual budget, had proposed a 3% COLA last year, 3% this year, and they're also doing a 1.5% bonus this year as part of their budget.
And I think that the fourth bullet point down, it says the town must remain competitive with surrounding localities and private industry. Municipal workers, I mean, it's a cutthroat business as far as trying to lure from one to another. And we've done our fair share, but we've also had we've been pirated our fair share too. So I think that with what we do, and my feeling is that the priority we hold our people to is to provide the best service to our citizens. And I think we can only do that in these small increases. And there too is, it's not a small increase, but in the percentage, it's a small increase.
You know, depends on who you're talking about. Because if you're talking of someone that's making, you know, $40,000 a year, you're talking about someone that's making over $100,000 a year. And that would be a over 12% increase within 2 years. You're talking about over $10,000 just in merits and all that.
I don't see how you get out of a merit allocation at $265,000, $262,500 per year. I don't see where you're getting, though, in the scope and the pay scale, right? I don't know that you're getting all that much, and there's per person. I think, you know, the hopes, majority of it will go back into the people that actually dig the holes and clean the streets.
So then we should do something for them instead of doing it overall for this, you know, do a higher increase for someone or increase the lower pays. To, you know, to make sure that they know that they're recognized for the hard work that they're doing, not that everybody's not doing the work.
But then you look at the supervisors and the department heads that are working probably 45 to 50 hours a week. then, do they say, well, no, we're not getting anything for it, why are we gonna do this? So I think that the current pay plans we have now are fair across the board. And out of this 2% increase, not everybody is gonna reach that. They have to reach a certain level of production and in their job evaluation before they even get consideration. If they've been here less than 6 months, they don't get an increase.
I think that was part of your questions to Randy. I think he's
Yeah,
got
and
this coming.
Quite well.
I think it would be good to have those answers before we
Yeah,
get
before we
to
make a decision.
anything else, yeah, because, I mean, that's still, I mean, if you talk about, that's 328,000 and then 265, that's over $500,000. That means that you are going to be paying $500,000 additional in your budget for those, for your employees every year, because now it's in the budget.
What is our
You
annual,
see what I'm
what
saying?
is our annual payroll? All departments, all people combined?
A very rough
If
estimate,
you take.
but yeah, you're
Well, it would be about, what,
it's like around 18 million, around 17, 18 million.
$18 million a year is what.
Yeah.
payroll is.
Rough. Yeah,
Rough, yeah.
rough estimate.
Do you know, I guess you do, whether those raises are stacked or compounded or?
Can you, well, they're both given at the same time, does that make, is that what you're asking?
I mean, if they get a raise this year and they qualify for a raise
Yeah,
next
so
year.
those raises, my understanding is, just based on since I've been here, that those would both go into effect, is it November? Okay.
The first,
So-
second.
So the COLA for everybody would go into effect November. If the person is eligible for a merit increase, that would go at the same time. So I guess you're asking if the person is making $50,000 or times, 1.03, and then is that number times the 1.2, or that compounding?
Yes.
Or is it just a flat,
That compound.
or is it just a
Yes.
flat 4.5? Just a 4.5?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
You
just a
understand.
4.5.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask you something? Katie can probably, maybe, what's needed to fill in those positions in public works and stuff? Well, you're right there. Right there. Because I know we had 16, you said that we have had, well, actually during the pandemic, I think you say you were down like 30 people in public works. Now you're down 16 people. Is that correct?
Yeah, the highest we were at 35, now we're at 17.
So that was 35, now we're 17. What are we doing to really fill out those positions?
You mean as far as?
What do you need to make sure that we fill in those positions? Because obviously, are you guys doing a subcontracting for that? Is that actually costing more money to the town? Is that you guys are doing more? How are you fulfilling those?
We-
Because I know you guys are working every day.
Yeah,
and I
they're
see it every day.
vacant. We're not using temp services or anything for those permanent positions.
Is it costing a lot of overtime because we're understaffed?
No, we try to control that. So we're still running about where we normally do as far as overtime. Things like the ice storm and stuff like that did cause us more costs naturally. But we use a certain amount of temps every year through mowing season. But we cannot backfill those positions with temps because they cannot run the equipment or drive the trucks or anything like that. And speaking to what you're talking about now, if you don't mind, as far as the COLA, I just lost two people that I trained and brought up because of money that went to Blacksburg. And I know it's an expensive, you look at it as an expense and everything, but your biggest investment here for us and what's helped us is the comp studies that we did and made all those adjustments 3 or 4 years ago and worked our way up through that to make us competitive. Because there was a time that we were losing several people.
Especially your position.
Yeah.
And I know that because I saw that over the years, but where my biggest concern is, which brings me back to this, how can we fulfill those positions? Because I do see that the low bracket of the the people that are working for the town are not making obviously the hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're making, under 50,000 or whatever that is. What I'm trying to say is, how can will it help you if we were to increase the bracket to start out instead of, obviously, I know that you're in management, so obviously it would be good to give you the raise, but what I'm saying is, will it help you if we raise the pay-in bracket on the lower levels to help you increase and get some more of those employees that you need?
The starting pay for his
Yeah.
operators.
Yeah, and we have, throughout every time we've adjusted the pay plan, that bracket raises up. But what you're not gonna get, you can raise that bracket up, but we're not gonna put inexperienced people in just to give them more money. That's our challenge, is your skilled workforce is kind of difficult to find these days. So we've made them adjustments the last 5 or 6 years of lowering that and bringing people in and investing in them in training, with that gamble that they'll leave after we train them because we gave them 2 or 3 years experience and they can go to another organization and
Can
get
I
more money.
ask you something? The people you just lost, were they making more than $80,000 a year?
No, I don't, my staff is not at the $80,000 level. There's some of them that is, and some of them above, but the majority of my workforce is $50,000 and
So if we were to increase the bracket by $10,000 more for someone that was making 50,000, don't you think that would have been able to be saved, those positions?
if you increase, it's like a domino. So if you increase the bottom bracket, you're going to increase all of them. So it's not just focused on the bottom bracket, because then you have compression in your pay scale.
And if we increase it 1 year, then everybody else around us is gonna be forced to follow suit, and then you're gonna be in the same issue. I think what he's talking about is, it's not I think our starting pay is competitive based on the salary studies that have been done. It's the lack of experience. You can't find the right experience to meet that.
But if you had that experienced person and they ask you for more money, do you guys not give them more money if you were to compete for those positions? Because
There is,
when I have worked with
there's a starting
companies,
range.
Let me ask you this, it's totally a different question. First of all, if somebody comes in untrained, I mean, are there certain certifications they have to have, or is it just training on equipment? How long does it take for you to train?
We have a
somebody if you're
progression
starting?
plan that person comes in as a trainee. They have a certain amount of time to get the experience.
Mhm.
They have to
What
get a
is that?
CDL.
I mean,
So you're looking at all of our disciplines. You're looking at asphalt experience, concrete experience, water line, sewer line. That's in-house.
mhm.
The CDL is a crucial thing. We do all of that training and pay for that in-house.
Mhm.
And then once they hit that level of experience, mainly the way things are written with us, where we multitask and multi-train, they have experience in 2 different divisions. And then once they get that, we budget for them an increase to move to maintenance worker 1. And then once they meet that criteria, they are eligible to move to maintenance worker 2. And so
Okay, so,
we've finally cleaned that up over the last 6 or 7 years to give them a clear direction. And then it allows us to budget for those promotions. And to answer your question, as far as the flexibility, if we do have someone that has experience, we do have some flexibility to offer them more money based on their education or their actual skill set or anything like
I'm
that.
just thinking if you're having a hard time finding people and you have the ability to train people, is there a possibility of a several year agreement with a new person that's coming in, as far as them being able to go somewhere else as a way of holding on to somebody longer?
So there is things like that in place, because we have basically, for lack of better words, got burned. So anything like our CDL, our IMSA stuff, or our traffic guys, any kind of certification or anything that we put them through, we require them to sign an agreement for a minimum of 12 months, because discussing it with Alicia, any more than 12 months was a little much. And then they have a clear understanding there is a prorated reimbursement if they leave after they get that certificate. Because we had several through our CDL program do that. They got that licensure and then they took off regardless if they really had the experience. They were telling their future employer with driving the vehicle or not, they left. So we had to put that in place.
Yeah, it seems like to me, maybe extending that out a little bit, giving that a try wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, I do have a little bit of experience with people and employees. I've been an employer since I was in my teens. And, you know, a big part of keeping people in place is the work environment. You know, that's sometimes more important than money, you know, but I'm always on the side of, letting someone be the best they can be, you know, and giving them an opportunity if they're showing, you know, that they're wanting that opportunity and going to take it and do something with it. Should there be protections in place for the town? Of course there should, but I would like for you to think about that a little bit more. You know,
I'll discuss it with Alicia.
yeah, it might help you, you know, to have a little more longevity. You know, in our field, we're not the top pay. We don't have the best or the biggest of anything. But guess what? We do have longevity with employees. It's not just money.
Yeah, that meant a lot years ago, because when I started here, I used to be at stacks of applications. And over the last, a little bit before COVID, that has dwindled, you know, quite a bit. And it's, I don't know if it's just the workforce or the generation or what it may be.
So me too.
Yeah, I think it's a lot, there's a lot going on with it. And I think we've adapted pretty well, to trying to meet those needs, you know, and give the good environment like you spoke of. But some of it, it baffles me sometimes, to be honest with you, why people do not apply. You're exactly right. The security and the longevity is here. And I think we are, competitive with our wages. And I think we need to maintain that competitiveness moving forward too. But again, we went from 35 to 17. And we've done pretty
And the
well.
challenges he's describing is not specific to the town of Christiansburg. All my time in VDOT in the maintenance section, very similar. I mean,
Well,
we have the
times
same
have
types of
changed. It is
issues.
Nationwide,
Oh, yeah,
probably
yeah.
worldwide.
I also heard that VDOT, you know, one of their, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard from many people that said, oh, VDOT really required for you to start out like in the bottom level to get the CDL and to at least have a year of experience. And how do you get that through the town? So,
So they
So-
do offer a trainee program, which is non-CDL, and but the majority of their operators that they get are CDL.
yeah, so
So they
it
have-
made it a lot easier. I know we lost a
So
lot.
that's the same type of levels he's talking about, bringing folks up and training them and then have protections in place that.
But I don't think those protections were with the town before, were they, Gene?
Okay,
I
we're
don't think
getting
they
out
work
of
at
the
the town,
budget
right?
now, we're getting into employment practices, so if we have covered to the best of your feelings, then let's move on to the cell phone policy.
I know you guys wanted to discuss cell phones, just a couple caveats when we talk about reimbursement versus town-owned cell phones. Your upfront cost for cell phone purchases are gonna be higher if the stipend is, you know, because I know that's one thing we talk about, is the cell phone stipend, making sure the right people, the people that need the phones are the ones that are actually getting it. But if the stipend goes away, just hypothetically, and the town is buying phones, you're gonna have a higher upfront cost for cell phone purchase. There's gonna be higher corporate rate plans versus, you know, like mine. I'll use mine as an example. You know, we're reimbursed for an actual cost up to $60. Because I have fixed lines on my account, my cost per line is less. So I'm only reimbursed for the cost of my line. So, you know, that's kind of how we look at that thing. But, so the town is essentially paying round numbers, $40 for my phone.
40, yeah.
Without the stipend, if it was to, you know, if it was to be a town-owned phone, then that would go up significantly.
If you have 6 lines with Verizon, wouldn't it be around $30? I have 6 lines, then I feel like
By the
$20.
time you figure in the plan, the data plan, the taxes, all that stuff, that's,
Okay.
Katie and them have a procedure for that. And you send them a bill and they analyze it, they pick out what's eligible, and that's what you're.
And not all employees town have a stipend,
No.
a cell phone. It's, they are, department head approved and recommended.
If the department head would authorize them to have a town phone, then that's when they would potentially get a stipend.
And they would be
So,
using their
the
basic
thing
phone.
is that we're not providing phones for people who don't need them to conduct their job.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
if they need the phone to conduct their everyday job, then
Yeah, absolutely. We're not giving a stipend to a part-time lifeguard.
yes.
And
Although they do get phone calls after hours. I get phone calls
So-
after hours, I don't have a phone.
And I think that's the one thing that we look at here. You know, most of the people, I would assume, and Chris, let's use the police department. Most of your patrol officers get a stipend.
They do.
Because, you know, to me, who in the heck would want to carry two cell phones around? I don't. So I think it's just easier for them, and I think it is less expensive for the town under this particular plan at this point, rather than, I looked at the average, just took an average cost of cell phones, it's $500.
Why, is that Montgomery
I
County?
mean, that went from the low base entry to
I don't
$1,000.
think I ever proposed that we
So-
purchase people's phones.
Yeah.
Sure, but that's part of
I'm
it.
sure that.
So we're okay on the cell
Yeah.
phone.
Can I ask you something?
No, I just
Montgomery
wanted to make sure that the people that had them.
No, that's, yeah.
So the
Job.
other thing I'll say is the up to $60 is what I was gonna say is that's the highest. The $40 is the, $30 is the other, cap. And if that's only if you need a phone line, like if you needed to be called, a phone call, you can get the up to $30. The $60 includes data. If you're required to check your email after hours, if you need to do other things, you know, on your own time or whatever, and that's how you would get to 60, up to 60.
The Montgomery County, are they doing a merit or they get the Commonwealth, Virginia, and Montgomery County?
It's a call.
I don't, to answer your question, I don't think they have a merit-based program.
So they only pay a call.
That's my understanding. Again, I'm not in the county finance, that's fine.
How did we come out with the 2.5 and 2%? We were trying to follow Blacksburg.
We're out of the cold, we moved out.
Well, I didn't because I still have those questions.
Go ahead, your next. Please. We're gonna have another work session
Oh, okay.
before we even have the public hearing.
Okay, I'll ask the questions.
So one of the items we wanted to talk about was the Kenneth Gibson Memorial Parking Ride sign. Brandy had roughly $25,000 budgeted. That would essentially be a town proposed sign that would mirror our current wayfinding signs. If you guys want, we can knock that loose. VDOT can
Yeah.
install their typical brown and white sign and we're.
Let's just wait for them to install it. Is that okay? I mean, that's $25,000. That's a lot of money still.
You know, for that matter, Jim, how much could our sign shop make a sign for them, put it up down there? About $1.25?
Are we allowed to though? We need to ask permission.
It's, what it'll be is it'll be the brown and white, the recreational, cultural interest sign. It's kind of like.
But that's what Vita's gonna do. If
That's-
we were,
that's
were we able to put, yeah, that's perfect.
Well, we don't know when they're gonna do it.
Well, that's Vita's property.
Well, let's see. Okay,
And then we talked a lot about the $950,000. I don't think we need to talk about this one.
No, I think-
So I guess we'll put it back into the budget.
we can leave it where it sits. We just like to use it, and if we decide we want to move it, then we can redesignate it from EMS capital reserve
I
back
think we
to
need
general fund.
reserves.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then no
Right.
bottom line on anything.
So do we have to vote on Tuesday meeting or are we okay? And as far as moving it to the budget, everybody's okay on that?
I'm sorry, what are you asking?
Moving it out of capital project to reserve.
Are we all okay with
Is that-
that? I'm okay
is
with
that-
that.
It's the directive to do that.
My
prior to budget.
thought on this thing, honestly, would be to bring it out and put it back in unrestricted reserves. Because if the county's looking at all our budgets, they're saying, well, oh, they got $1 million set aside to study building a fire station. What do we want to study it for? So, I mean,
So put it
It's
back
not-
into the reserve.
that
Thank
would be
you.
my thought.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, thank you.
Into unrestricted reserves.
All right, so the changes as of right now to the budget based on, as opposed to what you were given in the packet the original proposal. We talked about deducting the 17.5 from community support. That was based on your work session. There was a $39,000 cost for the Newer Valley Housing Fund added, which is year 2 of a 5-year commitment. There was an additional $20,000 for an increase in some fire equipment that we had to add to it. And then you may see the numbers on expenditures go up a little bit versus what our revenue is. And that is purely a result of a fiscal year 2025 carryover to the next fiscal year. So it's a net zero cost in the budget, but the numbers will reflect it being a carryover.
So if it's added to our budget, for example, the 39,484 for NRV, was that a grant that was given to us, or how did that money come?
No, we've added it to the bottom line budget. So
It was left out at the.
It was a commission.
it was left out. So we are on the hook for another, apparently it looks like 4 years on this 39.
That's the
housing
trust.
fund. And 20,000 for a one-time cost of
Real
fire
estate
equipment.
trust that we're,
What is that money for again? Can you remind me?
The River Housing Fund, it came to us, 2 years ago in public meeting, and we talked about it and thought, yeah, that'd be a good deal.
is the trust fund for housing. Low income housing.
Which doesn't exist, but yeah.
And then Billy.
Is that something we really have to put in the budget? Can we?
Yes, we,
Yeah, we're committed.
Yeah, the $20,000 in the fire equipment increase was the increase in host costs due to the tariffs. And, we had that money in a reserve fund already. It's not money that's coming out of taxes. We had that money in our reserves already, so it's not gonna be.
It's gonna show up on your
It's
expenditure.
just gonna show us I guess Katie's gonna show the $20,000 increase from what you saw last time.
was that on a particular thing or is just a general?
It was on, it's on our, county fire programs fund money that we get from Montgomery County. And that's money that we had left over from previous years, and we're just increasing that figure. We had it set at 65,000, I believe, and we're bumping it to 85,000. But that comes off from the county, and it's already in a reserve where it's not additional. We had it.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this one? So next steps. Right now, we've got our public hearing scheduled for May 13th. Consider the comments from the public hearing, adjust budget as deemed appropriate, and then we move forward into the adoption phase. And we have to have that adopted no later than June 30th of 2025.
So I think that, what I look at here is, I think before we have another work session, I'd like to hear the citizens' comments on May the 13th. We could schedule a work session in that interim 2-week period. Just to go back and get it. And Johnny, you had a question. I think one of your questions is the county giving a merit and a COLA? And that's a question we could probably have answered in an email.
Well, I had no clue because I didn't see that we were going to be putting that out today, especially since we're doing the same thing Blacksburg is doing.
To answer your question at the very beginning, our,
Cigar,
cigarette tax is 40 cents per pack.
40 cents. And then what is the county's? Do you know?
Oh, I do not know. I can go on their website and find it maybe.
Okay, because I know when I don't think they were taxing it before and then it went to the county and then all these.
They've always taxed it.
They were, so they
have
did the
always-
increase.
But their revenue on it's not that much, because there's not that many vendors in the county selling cigarettes.
I know now.
They have the Walmarts and every place else around.
The last times that the cigarette stuff was increased, do you remember having a big, people were they upset about it?
We did, and I can't remember what we increased it from to, but, we had some merchants, grocery store merchants that came and said, well, we're gonna lose employees. And after we raised it, at the end of the year, no, they didn't lose anything at all. And it's not, that's what their thought was, cigarette sales were gonna decrease. And I know that you can go just right 2 steps over the town's limits and buy cigarettes at a lesser tax fee.
That they had to
But
pay
what
for gas.
what we see is Most people, when they're dying for a cigarette, hell, they're gonna go next down the foot of the hill.
So I would like to hear from our administration and see what will they like, what can they recommend to us to increase that to, because I wouldn't be against increasing that, because I feel like, you know, that's not a necessity, and obviously I don't have that habit. But, you know, talking out of a person that doesn't do that, but I feel like, you know, maybe I'll keep somebody from smoking, maybe they'll go and get a burger instead.
I think overall, cigarette sales are down. Because of all of the other, and there's a big push to quit, and the other things, and cigarettes are the least taxed. So you don't pay a tax other than sales tax on cigars, chewing tobacco,
Is
snuff,
vaping
any of
the
that
same?
stuff.
Is vaping tax the same, or is it?
It's not tax period. Cigarettes, cigars, and that time.
We're gonna create a tax for that.
So the state doesn't come in a pack. So, okay, so we're good to go till the 13th to hear the comments. And then at the meeting on the 13th, we will schedule another work session if there's any other work to do. And we will decide at that point, which I don't like us doing. However, if we decide to, there are a couple items that someone feels strongly for or against, then we can pull those things out and vote on them. It's not gonna be a line item veto. Now, we got categories that people have had some concerns over, but we're not gonna go through until Public Works, you can't buy this from them, this type thing. It's like, or anybody else.
Well, the bigger things for me would be the water and stuff,
Water, okay,
and then obviously
cola.
the cola stuff
Okay.
and merit stuff.
All right, very good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We will adjourn.
The guy.